Thanks for joining us on this gorgeous fall day. Again, my name is Lynn Wells. I am a personal chef here in Greensboro. I also do some writing and food styling and recipe development for Our State Magazine. And I mention recipe development because this is a great segue. You might want to get a pen or a pencil for tonight's cooking demo. Not that I'm going to, share anything earth-shattering, but I'm going to be sharing some of my ideas for adding different flavors to this recipe that is so delicious and so easy. But I'm going to show you how to factor in different layers of flavors to change it up completely. So I'm going to kind of go in at the end here and show you the finished product. I'm going to bring it around to the camera here. So this is the stuffed zucchini boats, and I'm going to go through step by step. I actually added walnuts to this just for a little bit of extra crunch. It also is just great on this recipe. So that's the finished product. I know a lot of folks start out with the finished product at the end. So I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of how to get this started. The sausage stuffed zucchini boats are real easy. This time of year, zucchini is still coming in. You're probably sick of it. You've made zucchini bread, you've made zucchini lasagna, you've made sauteed zucchini, and now you're looking to get rid of it. Well, here's another recipe that, like I said, is really easy. But one thing I wanted to mention is if you don't have zucchini or don't like zucchini, you could substitute zucchini with summer squash, the yellow crookneck summer squash, or the small pumpkins, cut those in half and roast them to get them soft, and then scrape out all the seeds and pulp, and then fill it with what we're going to be doing tonight. Another great substitute is eggplant. If you like eggplant, you could cut it lengthwise, and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to roast this on the cooking sheet so that it caramelizes. But the way I did the zucchini is how you would want to do the eggplant. So we'll get started, and hopefully you've got the recipe with you. If not, we'll make sure you get it. But I'm gonna kind of switch it up a little bit. The recipe says to well, I'm gonna tell you what, this is a little easier if you roast the zucchini first and then remove the pulp. So I'm going to take my sheet pan with parchment paper, and this is canola oil. I happen to run out of olive oil, but you could use anything, but this is canola oil. And I didn't, put a lot on the sheet pan, but once you cut your zucchini lengthwise, these have been cooked, so that's why they're dripping. Then you're going to take the raw zucchini, cut it lengthwise, and then place it face down on the sheet pan, okay? And you're just going to place them down just like so. And I picked big zucchini. Actually, these were the only big zucchini I could find in the store today. And when I checked out in the grocery store, the clerk commented, she goes, "Oh, these are so big." I said, "Well, I'm stuffing them." And, so I prefer the small ones if I'm going to saute them. So that's how you would put the zucchini on your cookie sheet or baking sheet. And then I turn the oven to about 350 for 30 minutes. And I would have probably gone 20 if I could do this over again. You can see how much water. Zucchini's got a high water content. And it also, this is going to sound kind of weird, it also doesn't really have a lot of taste. It takes on whatever flavor you are adding to the dish. To me, it's kind of bland to be such a, prolific vegetable growing in our garden. I'm going to set this aside. So once you've roasted the zucchini, you'll want to let them cool, and you could salt them if you wanted to. But to be honest with you, if you salted them now, I wouldn't salt them a lot because there's more salt going into this dish. And I think, too much would kind of ruin it. So you've got your cooked zucchini. You want to make sure that it is cool before you touch it. And really the best way to take out the pulp is I just hold them in my hand. Now you can use a spoon, tablespoon, teaspoon. I'm a big fan of scoops, not only the chip version, Frito-Lay, but scoop. So you can get these scoops, get a really good one where it's got a nice tight spring on it. You can get these at Extra Ingredient at Friendly Center in Greensboro. You can get them, I think Williams and Sonoma sells them. I don't think Target sells them. But you want to get, Michael's might sell them like in the cake aisle, cake decorating aisle, but you want to get a scoop. I use these for I get a bigger scoop. I use them for muffins to measure out the muffin. I use them for cookies. That's how all the cookies, the bakers, that's what they use to get that uniform, consistent shape and size. But these are great. So I'm going to use a smaller scoop. They've also got a pretty nice sharp edge on them. So I'm just going to pick one of these up and demonstrate what I'm going to do. So you're going to add, when you scrape this out, you're going to add the pulp to the mixing bowl. Now you see all that water that just oozed out. They just have a high water content. It's still dripping. So I'm going to set that there. I'm going to do another one. I'm just going to scrape out. And I'm not I'm not digging in and getting a whole lot. I'm going to leave a little bit of meat, if you will, behind. And it's kind of stringy. It's kind of like that pumpkin guts. All right, so I'm just going to do 2 of those and set that here. And then to that, I've already browned the ground turkey, and I do buy organic. I try to, if you can ever get to know your local farmer, that is the absolute best way to eat any kind of protein, whether it's chicken, turkey, beef, pork, big proponent of that. But I've used organic ground turkey. Now, if you're gonna, if it just says ground turkey, then that's ground turkey thighs with breast meat. If it says ground turkey breast, then that's all breast meat, and you're gonna have to add oil to the pan in order, to get, because it's just gonna be so dry. I mean, I didn't add anything. I did. I added a little bit of oil to the pan. It's cast iron skillet, my mom's cast iron skillet, and and you can see how so it's dry, but we're gonna take care of that. So I've got the browned turkey. I've already added the garlic powder. And you might say, why are you using garlic powder and not fresh garlic? Well, I'll tell you why. I wanted this to be a information opportunity. This recipe doesn't matter. You can use fresh garlic. I have fresh garlic, but I also buy a really good quality garlic powder. And for this, it doesn't really matter if I use fresh. If I'm making a marinara sauce, for spaghetti, or of course garlic lemon chicken, or a Greek dish, I'm gonna use fresh garlic. But for this, it doesn't matter. And I will share that 1 clove of garlic. So this is, and not to insult anybody's intelligence, but this is a bulb of garlic. This is a clove of garlic. This is 1, and believe me, people have, they've added, the recipe will say, 1 clove, and they put the bulb, so it makes it inedible, unless you're, ward off the vampires. But anyway, 1 clove of garlic is the equivalent of 1/8 of a teaspoon of garlic powder. So for this recipe to have a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, that's like 3 cloves of garlic. So, if you're anytime you're using garlic powder, onion powder, dried herbs, you want to back off on the amount that you're adding to the recipe versus when you're using fresh. So I've already added the garlic powder to this, and I added a little bit of salt. And I will mention, anytime I talk about salt, I'll mention that not only do they do this on the food shows, usually hold the salt up kind of high. That's not to be fancy or anything, but it gives you a better visual of where the salt is actually hitting what it is you're salting. So I've got a little bit of that zucchini pulp in with this cooked sausage, and I'm going to add the 2 cups of sharp cheddar cheese. I'm doing this in a shallow bowl. I'm going to move some things around so you can see. And I like using fresh greenery like parsley. It's just got a nice fresh flavor. Actually doesn't have a lot of flavor, but it just adds a green, fresh component, I should say. And then 3 green onions or spring onions, you might know of them depending on where you grew up. And then, fresh corn is still coming in. You could just cut it right off the cob and put it right in this recipe. And then ranch dressing, you're like, oh, that's, kind of weird. Well, it actually, it's really, really good in this recipe. And you could make your own by taking a super healthy version would be to, take some Greek yogurt and a little bit of low-fat sour cream and add garlic powder and some salt and pepper, and then chopped dill, parsley, and chives, and you've got a great ranch dressing. So that's ranch dressing, and then I'm adding some fresh parsley, and then we're going to just kind of mix all that up together. And then once we put this in the zucchini boats that we just scooped out the meat of, we'll put them back in the oven for, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. So if you're roasting your zucchini first, like I just showed you on the sheet pan, I would put it at 350 for about 20 minutes. You don't want them super soft because you're going to be putting them back in the oven once we've stuffed them. So you'll mix this up. And one thing I wanted to mention about the turkey. So if you're using, of course, if we were using ground, like Nice's sausage, that is pork. It's a lot more fat. It's seasoned with sage and pepper and all kinds of other things. If you want that sausage flavor, but you're wanting or needing to use ground turkey, then I would add ground sage and a little bit of red crushed pepper flakes. Not a lot of ground sage, but for a pound of ground turkey, I think you'll be fine with about a ½ teaspoon of ground sage in the turkey meat. And that is, you're not going to believe it, that is going to make it taste just like breakfast sausage. That's one way to change this recipe up. Another way that I love is, if you're familiar with fennel seeds, I'm going to shake some. I just love the smell of this. I'm going to shake some out and hold it up to the camera. Fennel is what a lot of times you'll see in Italian sausage. You'll see it on pizza, but it's what makes things like baked ziti and the Italian sausages really come alive. And you don't need to grind them, but that's what whole fennel seeds look like. And you could take like a mortar and pestle and crush them up, or you could put them in a food processor and grind them up to a powder. But adding this, just to back it up, we're browning our ground turkey. If you wanted to add some fennel to that, then that will add another layer of flavor that will resemble that of Italian sausage. So those are some really easy ways to change the flavor of this simple and easy recipe up. And not to confuse you, but I'm going to throw in one more idea for changing the spices up. And this would especially be good if you're using eggplant. So if you have roasted eggplant half and you've scraped out, some of the pulp after it's cooled, when you're browning your turkey, I love the Moroccan flavor. So add a little bit. You could Google, for Moroccan spices, but like a blend of Moroccan spices would be cinnamon, allspice, cardamom, got them written down, cumin and ginger, and mix all those up. So it's cumin, ginger, allspice, cinnamon, cardamom. I'm probably repeating some of these. And you mix those all together and just put, like equal parts, and you've got this spice mix, and then you can put that in your sauce, turkey sausage, excuse me, ground turkey. And it will just, it's a really different flavor, but it's so good. And then instead of sharp cheddar cheese, you could use ricotta, or actually ricotta would be really good with those Moroccan flavors mixed in with the ground turkey and stuffed in eggplant. And then you put it back in the oven and bake it, and maybe sprinkle some breadcrumbs or panko breadcrumbs on top. And you've got a completely different dish, kind of using really this recipe as a base. So now all I'm going to do, clean up my mess a little bit, get the fennel wrapped up. If you've got fresh basil in the garden right now, mine's going crazy with all the rain and the heat we've had, you could put basil. There's no rules. I don't, unless you're baking. When it comes to cooking and things like this, change it up. Use Gruyere instead of sharp cheddar. Use Swiss cheese instead of sharp cheddar. Gruyere and Swiss will add a nuttiness to the flavor. Sharp cheddar is just so commonly known. But again, you could just change it up to about anything. So I'm going to take my zucchini boat, and this go around, I'm not going to use the scoop. I'm just going to use a spoon. And I'm going to guess that there is about 2 ounces of meat for each zucchini half in this. And then you're getting the corn, which adds, I think it looks like a great fall dish personally. You're getting corn, and you're getting the crunch of the onion, and you can just, fill it up like so. Put these on the baking sheet, put them back in the oven. That's why you don't want to overcook the zucchini from the get-go. Put them back in the oven, let the cheese melt and all the flavors combine. And then when you get ready to serve it, I'm doing a little ad lib here. I'm going to use my skillet, my cast iron skillet as a plate. When you get ready to serve it, hot and to the table, I've got 1 more, maybe 2 more of these gorgeous Cherokee purple tomatoes that I picked up at the farmer's market, and just cut them. They're not cooked or anything. And that is a great dinner, I think. And like I said, you could put all walnuts on here or pine nuts, but that's a great dinner there. This will brown. I know the light's kind of bright, but this will get bubbly, and then put some nice sliced fresh cold tomatoes on there from the farmer's market or from your garden, and you have got dinner. So I want to make sure I've got just in review. We've got the zucchini. I mentioned you could substitute summer squash. You could substitute probably acorn squash. It's a little tricky to cut, but you could substitute that. You could stuff eggplant, really anything to change up the flavors of the ground turkey. You could either add sage and red pepper flakes to give it more of a sausage flavor, or you could add fennel seeds and maybe a little oregano to it to give it a little bit more of an Italian sausage flavor. And if you're like more of a Moroccan flavor, almost like a moussaka dish, you could add the blend that I mentioned earlier of cinnamon, allspice, cardamom, let's see what else, cumin, ginger, and mix that up and add ricotta instead of the sharp cheddar. And we mentioned some other cheeses, so have fun with it. One thing I wanted to show you before we end is these are super easy to make ahead and freeze. So I'm going to just show you how I do that. I buy deli wrap from, you can get it online. But I usually, I don't like opening a bag, Ziploc bag that's been in the freezer and have that freezer burn on it. So what I'll do is I'll cut the zucchini in half, and maybe after they've cooled, and then I'll wrap a half in, whoop, little magic trick here. I'll wrap a half in this deli paper and roll it up, close the ends, and then it's not quite so messy when you go to put it in a Ziploc bag for freezing. And I may actually do this because I'm going out of town tomorrow, and this would be a nice thing to come home to. Just take it out, thaw it. You could either heat them up in the oven or microwave it to just heat through, and you've got dinner. And this with a salad, throw some walnuts or some nice nuts in your salad or on top of these zucchini. Label it, always label and date your food going into the freezer and push the air out. But you've got dinner to go, or dinner to go to tailgating. I don't know if this would be a good tailgating, but it could be if you're watching your carbohydrates. But just anywhere where you can heat it up, and everything's been cooked, so you don't really need to heat it up. But I prefer my food hot. So I hope that I have covered everything, and I hope you'll give this a try. I don't know if anyone, not only can I not see Kate, but I can't see or hear anyone else either. So I'm going to probably go by the chat room, and I won't be typing the answer. I'll just be talking, but I'll go into chat to take my lead from Katie, who I greatly appreciate being on the other side of the camera. So that is it. Thank you again. Lynn Wells, you can find me on Instagram at Time Well Spent, GSO, and that's time spelled THYME. I had to get an herb in there. Time Well Spent, GSO. And I'm on Facebook as Time Well Spent Personal Chef. And you'll recognize me. It's a picture of me holding some vegetables, I think. But anyway, this has been fun despite the technical difficulties. And again, I thank you so much. I hope you'll join us next month. Katie's gonna share the topic with you.
Thank you all so much for joining us. Lynn, you did an excellent job. I know we are all probably so hungry now. I have some really good comments from our attendees that one used Mexican peppers and chopped some potatoes in it to beef it up. So yeah, that's sounds really hearty, doesn't it? So now that you can all hear me and maybe hopefully see me too, I love this recipe that Lynn shared with us for so many reasons. First of all, I think it's super creative to use a vegetable kind of as the vessel for the dish, because we're so used to using, as you said, carbohydrates, breads, tortillas, things, chips to eat the inner part, which is normally the more nutritious, flavorful part. So I think that's super creative and a great way to increase our vegetables. And again, watch your carbohydrates if that is something that is of interest to you. And so I think you can actually kind of use that in inspiration for other dishes as well. So using things like those delicious tomatoes you have as your cup for your tuna salad or your chicken salad, instead of crackers or bread as a sandwich, using peppers as one of our attendees mentioned for, some ground turkey or some sauteed up chicken, or kind of like, fiesta kind of like taco mix, burrito mix filling, where you're putting it into a cooked pepper instead of, again, a tortilla or a taco. So I think that's really great. Also, the substitutions that Lynn was talking through tonight, using ground turkey instead of the sausage or a ground beef, is going to really mainly be lower in saturated fat, which is unhealthy for our heart and can increase our cholesterol. So that's a great trade-off, and that you can use in any dish, as long as you've got some moisture, some liquid, right, Lynn?
Yeah.
As you mentioned. So things like spaghetti and meatloaf are good dishes to make those trade-offs Whereas sometimes you need that extra moisture, that little bit of extra fat for certain dishes. So I thought that was a wonderful trade-off too. So, and definitely not being afraid to flavor things according to your personal taste. You know, some people love basil, some people hate it, some people love cilantro, others hate it. So I think that's great. There's so much freedom to make those substitutions with not only what you like, but also what you have on hand. So I hope you all have fun playing around with this dish. And as Lynn mentioned, we're going to be doing this each month through the rest of the year. And so next are going to be doing a vegetarian chili with Lynn. So we look forward to seeing you join us for that. If anyone has questions, please leave them in the chat box for Lynn and myself. We will stick around a few moments and make sure we get those questions answered for you. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.